The new generation of consoles is a source of great joy to many people, at least to those who've been able to buy one. One not so joyous fact is an increase in the cost of games, often as much as 40% for top titles. With all that being said, this is Yorkshire Guy Gaming, and I'd like to ask the question, is it still worth buying games on day one? The answer to this question can be remarkably simple. If you cannot afford them, then no. As much as we all love video games, they are not a necessity. It is far more important that you spend your money on things that actually matter, like paying your rent and feeding your children. However, assuming that you have surplus cash, that doesn't mean you want to waste it on a poor game. Back in the day, the game you picked up off the shelf was the finished product, for good or ill. Thanks to the wonders of the internet, we now live in a world where the game released at launch can look very different weeks, months, even years down the line. This is good, as any in-game problem can be fixed and you are not stuck with a broken game. A potential downside to this is that a studio can now launch a game that they know is not ready. And while the game may get patched to perfection over time, this is scant consolation to those that handed over their hard-earned cash for a game that is borderline unplayable. I am sure though that no studio would ever dream of doing such a thing. They all value customer satisfaction over profits, and would never push out a broken product just to meet a launch date. The costs of making a video game can often rival a major motion picture. This means there is a huge amount of pressure on developers to have a game ready for launch, as any delay can have a massive impact on profits. We've all heard horror stories about crunch time, of developers being forced to work ridiculously long hours and unpaid overtime. Knowing that, it's really no surprise to see these problems in development manifesting themselves in the finished product. These manifestations may just take the form of a few minor glitches, or in a worst case scenario, a game being released that's unplayable, massive fan backlash and refunds having to be given out. Now these horror stories are out in public, hopefully we will be able to see a change in the industry and developers can work under much better conditions. The fan community has been very vocal in its support for developers. At the end of the day, we would all rather wait for a game to be ready naturally. A game will turn out better when a developer has been able to put the care and attention into it that it deserves, rather than them being forced to break themselves mentally and physically. No game is worth that. Pre-orders are a huge part of the video game industry these days. For game distributors and retailers, they are a way to gauge how popular a game will be and how successful a marketing campaign has been. For consumers, things are a bit more complicated. Not only are they faced with the dilemma of whether to pre-order a game that may turn out to be terrible, they also have to decide which edition of a game they should order. Many games offer multiple editions, each edition offering an increased amount of extra content, be it skins, weapons, or a season pass for future DLC, and each edition increasing in price. And while the base edition of a game may be classed as an occasional treat for many, the ultimate full bells and whistles package can easily hit triple digits, and that's the sort of thing that a lot of people have to ask Santa Claus for. Whichever edition you choose, you need to have full confidence that the game you order is going to turn out good. Many franchises that release yearly tend to be not too much different to what came just a year before, so fans can be pretty confident that what they are going to get, they are going to like. A brand new IP, or a sequel which is changing direction from those that have come before, is a bit of an unknown quantity. In that case, trailers, pre-order bonuses, and even the developer's reputation become important factors in whether or not someone pre-orders a game. Buying a multiplayer game on day one is a different prospect over buying a single player game. For a start, many multiplayer games are free to play, so the only real risk is of being swore at by the world's angriest 14-year-old. Multiplayer games are by their very nature highly competitive. If you want to be at the top of the leaderboard, you need to be in there early. There is also the issue of actually being able to get online and play a game. Aside from issues of servers being overloaded with players at launch, finding a match will usually be a quick process. These servers will quieten down over time though, as gamers move on to other games. If you pick up a bargain multiplayer game years after launch and try to get a match online, you may find yourself shouting all alone into the void. Buying a single player game at launch that does have glitches is not necessarily a bad thing. Many of those glitches can be exploited into huge advantages for players. This could be anything from fast levelling up, overpowered weapons, to even skipping huge parts of the game. These exploits are often patched out quickly, so don't expect to be able to take advantage of them if you buy the game a year after launch. One reason not to purchase a game before launch is that after launch there is a huge amount of information out about the game. You can make a considered opinion about whether you will like it by reading a multitude of reviews, watching let's plays, and just reading all the general chatter on the game. Another reason to wait is purely financial. Games are always going on and off sale, and it is not uncommon to see a AAA title at half price less than a year after launch. In this regard, patience really does pay. The issue of whether to buy a game on day one is going to be a problem facing PlayStation owners much more than Xbox owners. And while it's hard to argue that PlayStation does have a better catalogue of exclusives over Xbox, Microsoft's purchase of studios like Bethesda is a solid statement of intent that they do not intend for this to continue. Sony are also making moves to tie studios exclusively to their brand, and there is no reason to believe that their exclusive content will not remain at a very high standard. It will be interesting to see that when Microsoft start dropping Game of the Year caliber games on Game Pass at no extra cost, whether those triple-digit purchases suddenly dry up for Sony. Which side of the fence do you fall on? Are you exclusive with Sony? Or do you have a lifetime subscription to Game Pass? Go nuts in the comments. I realise I may have painted a somewhat lopsided view as to whether to buy a game on day one. And if you were wondering, I don't. The game that is responsible for that decision will be discussed in another video. It needs to be pointed out that the vast majority of games that are released absolutely flawlessly and are well worth your money. What has become apparent during this video though is the sheer amount of choice that gamers have now. You don't have to buy a game on day one, or you can buy the top bells and whistles package for everything. If you do not wish to go down that route, you can just pay a monthly subscription and still play AAA titles. This is a great time to be a video gamer, and we should all embrace it. What's your views? Do you buy day one? Please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps me out, and I'd really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.